Hi there, future teacher. Welcome back to your FTCE Professional Education Test Prep, brought to you by TeacherPreps.com. In this video, we're covering Competency 5, Continuous Professional Improvement. This competency makes up about 12% of the exam, which means you can expect roughly 10 questions from this material. It covers how effective teachers grow throughout their careers, setting professional development goals, using evidence-based practices, collaborating with colleagues and families, and reflecting on your own teaching to get better every single day. Let's break it all down. Before we dive in, we put together a free study guide workbook that goes along with this video. It has all the key terms, comparison tables, practice questions, and space for your own notes. Grab your free copy from the link in the description. This video is brought to you by TeacherPreps.com. Our FTCE 083 prep includes a complete study guide covering all 8 competencies, full-length timed practice tests that match the real exam format, and AI-scored constructed response practice. It's free to get started. All right, that was our plug. For the rest of this video, it's go time. Grab your pen and paper. Here's what we'll cover in Competency 5. First, setting professional development goals using the SMART framework and making those goals data-driven. Second, evidence-based practice, including the What Works Clearinghouse, action research, and how to critically evaluate educational research. Third, professional learning communities, or PLCs, and do-fors for critical questions that drive collaborative inquiry. Fourth, individual reflection, including video self-analysis and structured reflection protocols. Fifth, family engagement and stakeholder collaboration, including the difference between engagement and involvement and how to address cultural and linguistic barriers. Sixth, school-based collaboration, co-teaching models, and working with instructional coaches. Seventh, implementing professional development effectively and understanding why most PD fails. Eighth, Guskey's 5 levels of PD evaluation. And ninth, using technology for professional growth, including the ISD standards for educators. Let's get into it. Let's start with setting professional development goals. On the exam, when you see a question about goal setting for teachers, the answer will almost always involve the SMART framework. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Let's walk through each letter. Specific means the goal clearly describes what you will do. Not, I want to be a better teacher, but I will implement at least 2 formative assessment strategies per week in my math block. Measurable means you can track progress with data. How will you know you've achieved this goal? Maybe you track the number of formative assessments administered or measure the change in student quiz scores over time. Achievable means the goal is realistic given your resources, time, and current skill level. A first-year teacher shouldn't set a goal to redesign the entire school's curriculum. Relevant means the goal connects to an actual need. This is where data-driven goal setting comes in. Look at your student achievement data, classroom observation feedback, and self-assessment results to identify specific areas for growth. If your students consistently struggle with reading comprehension, your PD goal should address reading instruction, not classroom management. Time-bound means the goal has a clear deadline, by the end of the first semester or within the next 8 weeks. Here's the exam tip. If a question asks about the best first step for a teacher's professional growth plan, the correct answer is usually analyzing student data to identify an area of need before setting a goal. Now let's talk about evidence-based practice. This means making instructional decisions based on research, not on tradition, personal preference, or what's popular. The exam tests whether you know how to find and evaluate educational research. The most important resource to know is the What Works Clearinghouse, often abbreviated WWC. The WWC is maintained by the Institute of Education Sciences, which is the research arm of the U.S. Department of Education. It reviews educational studies and rates the strength of evidence behind specific programs and practices. When the WWC says a practice has strong evidence, it means multiple well-designed studies have shown positive effects. If a question asks where a teacher should look for research-backed strategies, the WWC is your answer. Next, action research. Action research is when a teacher systematically studies their own practice to solve a specific classroom problem. Here's how it works in 4 steps. Step 1. Identify a question. For example, will using graphic organizers improve my 3rd graders' persuasive writing scores? Step 2. Collect data. You might give a pre-assessment, Implement graphic organizers for 6 weeks, then give a post-assessment. Step 3. Analyze the data. Did writing scores improve? By how much? For which students? Step 4. Reflect and adjust. Based on results, decide whether to continue, modify, or abandon the strategy. The key difference between action research and just trying something new is the systematic data collection and analysis. Finally, critical evaluation of research. Not all studies are created equal. On the exam, you need to distinguish between peer-reviewed research, which has been evaluated by experts before publication, and non-peer-reviewed sources like blog posts, opinion pieces, or vendor-sponsored studies that may be biased. Look for studies with control groups, adequate sample sizes, and results that have been replicated by other researchers. Next up, professional learning communities, or PLCs. A PLC is a team of educators who meet regularly to collaborate on improving student learning. The most tested framework for PLCs on this exam comes from Richard Dufour, who identified 4 critical questions that drive PLC work. Question 1. What do we want students to learn? This is about identifying essential standards and learning targets. The team agrees on exactly what students must know and be able to do. Question 2. How will we know if they've learned it? This is where common formative assessments come in. A common formative assessment is a test or task that all teachers on the team give to their students, so results can be compared across classrooms. For example, every 3rd grade teacher gives the same math quiz on fractions. Then the team compares results to see which teacher's students performed well and which struggled. Question 3. What will we do when students haven't learned it? This is about intervention. The PLC develops a systematic response, not leaving it up to each teacher to figure out independently. Maybe students who didn't master fractions get pulled into small groups for targeted reteaching. Question 4. What will we do when students already know it? This is about extension and enrichment for students who've mastered the content. Here's the critical exam point about PLCs. The focus is on student learning outcomes, not on teacher activities. A PLC that spends meetings discussing logistics, field trip planning, or sharing materials without examining student data is not functioning as a true PLC. If you see a question asking what makes a PLC effective, the answer will involve teachers analyzing student work and assessment data together. Let's talk about individual reflection. Effective teachers don't just teach and move on. They systematically reflect on what worked, what didn't, and why. One powerful tool is video self-analysis. This means recording yourself teaching a lesson and then watching it back with a critical eye. When you watch yourself teach, you notice things you couldn't see in the moment. How long your wait time actually is, which students you call on most often, whether your transitions are smooth or chaotic, and how much time students spend actively engaged versus passively listening. The exam may ask why video self-analysis is more effective than simply thinking back on a lesson. The answer is that memory is unreliable and selective. Video provides objective evidence of what actually happened. Next, reflection protocols. A reflection protocol is a structured framework that guides your thinking after a lesson. One commonly tested example is plus/delta. Plus means what went well in the lesson, what should be kept. Delta means what should change for next time. Notice it's not minus or negative. Delta focuses on constructive change, not just criticism. Another important concept is the teach, assess, reflect cycle. You teach a lesson, you assess whether students learned, you reflect on the results, and then you adjust your instruction. This is a continuous loop, not a one-time event. The exam consistently rewards answers that describe teachers who use data from their own classroom to inform their next instructional decisions. Now let's cover family engagement, which is a major topic within stakeholder collaboration. The exam makes an important distinction between family involvement and family engagement. Family involvement is the traditional model. Parents attend school events, volunteer in classrooms, and help with homework. The school sets the agenda and families participate in school-directed activities. Family engagement goes further. It means families are genuine partners in their child's education. They have a voice in decision-making. They share knowledge about their child's strengths and needs, and communication flows in both directions. Here's the key. Engagement is collaborative and reciprocal, while involvement is more one-directional. On the exam, the best answer almost always favors engagement over involvement. Now, two-way communication. Effective family engagement requires communication that goes both ways. The teacher doesn't just send newsletters home. The teacher also creates channels for families to share their perspectives, surveys, phone calls, home visits, parent conferences where families speak as much as teachers, and digital platforms where families can respond and ask questions. Cultural norms and barriers are critical to understand. Families from different cultural backgrounds may have different expectations about the parent-teacher relationship. In some cultures, questioning a teacher is considered disrespectful. In others, education is viewed as entirely the school's responsibility. These are not deficits. They are cultural differences that teachers must understand and respect. Common barriers to family engagement include language differences, work schedules that conflict with school events, lack of transportation, negative past experiences with schools, and unfamiliarity with the American school system. Effective teachers proactively address these barriers. They offer translated materials, schedule meetings at varied times, provide childcare during events, and reach out personally rather than relying on mass communication. On the exam, if a teacher notices low family participation, the correct response is to examine and address barriers, not to assume families don't care about education. Let's move to school-based collaboration. Effective teachers don't work in isolation. They collaborate with colleagues, coaches, and administrators to improve outcomes for students. Co-teaching is a major model tested on the exam. In co-teaching, two teachers share responsibility for planning, delivering, and assessing instruction in the same classroom. This is most common in inclusive settings where a general education teacher and a special education teacher work together. There are several co-teaching models you should know. One teach, one observe. One teacher leads while the other collects data on student engagement, behavior, or understanding. One teach, one assist. One leads instruction while the other circulates to provide individual support. Station teaching. Students rotate through stations, each led by one of the teachers. Parallel teaching. The class is split in half and both teachers teach the same content simultaneously to smaller groups. And team teaching. Both teachers actively co-deliver instruction together, sharing the lead role throughout the lesson. The exam tends to favor team teaching and station teaching as the most equitable models because both teachers play active instructional roles. Models where one teacher always assists can create an imbalance. Next, instructional coaches. An instructional coach is a school-based professional who works with teachers one-on-one or in small groups to improve their practice. Coaches observe lessons, model strategies, co-plan units, and provide targeted feedback. The coaching relationship is non-evaluative, meaning the coach does not rate or score the teacher. This is important because teachers are more likely to take risks and be honest about challenges when the feedback isn't tied to their evaluation. Finally, school improvement goals. Individual teachers' professional development goals should align with the broader school improvement plan. If the school's goal is to improve reading achievement by 10%, individual teacher PD goals should connect to literacy instruction, not unrelated topics. Now let's talk about implementing professional development effectively, and specifically, why most PD fails. Research consistently shows that the traditional PD model does not change classroom practice. What is the traditional model? A one-day workshop where a presenter lectures to a room full of teachers. Teachers take some notes, and then go back to their classrooms the next day with no follow-up, no coaching, and no accountability. This is sometimes called sit and get or spray and pray PD. It doesn't work because learning a new teaching strategy is like learning any complex skill. You need sustained practice, feedback, and support over time. A single workshop provides none of that. So what does effective PD look like? The research points to 5 characteristics. First, it's sustained over time, not a one-shot event. Effective PD happens over weeks or months with regular follow-up. Second, it's job embedded, meaning it connects directly to teachers' daily work. Analyzing student work from your own classroom is job-embedded PD. Attending a conference on a topic unrelated to your grade level is not. Third, it's collaborative. Teachers learn best when they learn together, observe each other, and share strategies. Fourth, it's content-focused, meaning it deepens teachers' knowledge of specific subjects and how students learn them, not just generic teaching techniques. And fifth, it includes active learning, where teachers practice new strategies, analyze student work, and receive feedback, rather than passively listening to a lecture. On the exam, if a question describes a PD program and asks which element would make it most effective, look for the answer that adds sustained follow-up, peer collaboration, or connection to actual classroom data. One of the most important frameworks in this competency is Thomas Guskey's 5 levels of professional development evaluation. Guskey argued that schools often evaluate PD at only the lowest level and ignore what actually matters. Let's walk through all 5 levels. Level 1. Participants' reactions. This is the satisfaction survey you fill out after a workshop. Did you enjoy the session? Was the presenter knowledgeable? This tells you whether teachers like the PD, but it tells you nothing about whether it will change their teaching or improve student learning. This is the level where most schools stop evaluating, and that's a problem. Level 2. Participants' learning. Did teachers actually learn the new knowledge or skills presented? This could be measured through a post-session quiz, demonstration, or reflection activity. It's better than Level 1 because it confirms learning happened, but learning something and using it in your classroom are 2 different things. Level 3. Organization support and change. Did the school provide the support teachers need to implement what they learned? Were there resources, time, administrative support, and coaching? PD can fail not because teachers didn't learn, but because the school didn't support implementation. Level 4. Participants' use of new knowledge and skills. Are teachers actually using the new strategies in their classrooms? This requires classroom observations, coaching visits, or analysis of lesson plans over time. Many teachers learn new techniques in PD but never implement them because of time pressures, lack of confidence, or no follow-up support. Level 5. Student learning outcomes. This is the most important level and the ultimate measure of PD effectiveness. Did student achievement improve as a result of the PD? Are students performing better on assessments? Are there observable changes in student skills, attitudes, or behaviors? Guskey's key argument is that if PD doesn't ultimately improve student outcomes, it hasn't been effective, no matter how much teachers enjoyed it or how much they learned. On the exam, remember, Level 5 is the gold standard. If a question asks about the most meaningful way to evaluate PD, the answer is measuring the impact on student learning. Great work so far, future teacher. You have just covered the core strategies for continuous professional improvement, including SMART goals, evidence-based practice, professional learning communities, and Guskey's 5 levels of professional development evaluation. But you still need to cover technology-driven PD and the 4 practice questions. To get the complete study guide, plus full-length timed practice tests, head to TeacherPreps.com. The link is in the description.